Commanders hire Dan Quinn to match with their new general manager, Adam Peters, to lead this franchise into the future.
The way that we live is not for everybody, okay? It's not, all right? Because we're going to run and put our bodies on people in a violent manner.
Whether the team is giving us the highest of highs or the blues to blues, we'll cover it all here on Commanders Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to tonight's lead story. So, we talked about this the other day when we first got wind of the news that Jon Allen could potentially return to the field this season. It seemed like he was going to be done for the year when we found out he tore his pectoral muscle. However, what we didn't know was it was only partially torn, and that gave him a shot at returning at some point this season if rehab, surgery, everything went well. Well, here we are. The Commanders have officially opened his 21-day window today. So he was allowed to return to the practice field. He was sporting a black non-contact jersey, going through individual drills. And there is hope that Jon Allen could return before the regular season finale versus the Dallas Cowboys. So this is pretty big news for a guy that I will say a lot of fans have given up on. A lot of fans want this man traded, and were disappointed in the production that he was providing prior to the injury. But having had a chance to see what life is like without him, you much rather have him than not have him. It's the same conversation we've had surrounding Daron Payne. Yeah. Are you a little disappointed in what you aren't getting necessarily? Sure. But it beats the alternative. We could have Carl Davis starting at defensive tackle for us, right? You understand what I'm saying? So you'd much rather have the Bama wall in its full totality out on the field than to have one half of it. And you'd much rather have Johnny Newton coming off the bench. You much rather have Sheldon Day coming off the bench and have those guys in a reserve role, giving you the depth that you're looking for. I'm done with Carl Davis. Bring me back Fedarian Mathis, okay? So if you have a Jon Allen, there's no need for a Carl Davis any longer. And then you would have Sheldon Day and you would have Johnny Newton as your two reserve defensive tackles, and Carl Davis can kind of fade to black, right? So this is great news. We'll see how long it takes him to get up to a point where, as DQ always likes to say, they don't miss a step. He's ready to go. He's able to get into some contact drills and able to be a part of the fray once again. He will be a welcome addition to this defensive line, and hopefully Jon Allen is able. I really felt bad for J.A. when he got injured because he hasn't been a part of a winner since he's gotten here. The one season that resulted in bonus football, we were a 7-9 ball club. We weren't good. The rest of the division was just that bad. And so he hasn't been a part of a winner since he got here. There have been years where they started out well, i.e. 2018, but it didn't finish well, obviously. So he's never seen this much success this late into the season. Okay, again, we're 9-5 through 15 weeks for the first time since 1992. So again, it's been a while since they've been at this level. So it's going to take a lot for him to get back on the field. Don't want to jump the gun, but they would not have opened this window if he weren't getting close. My guess is he'll have a shot to play in week 18. He's definitely not playing this week, obviously. And I don't think he's playing against Atlanta next week either. But I think there's a realistic shot that he's out there against the against the Dallas Cowboys in week 18. If we need him. He will be activated by then. I'll guarantee you that, because if they don't activate him before that game, he will be out for the rest of the season. Even if we make the postseason, he will have to go back on injury reserve and be done for the year. And they're not going to allow that to happen. So trust me, they would not have opened this window if they didn't think he was close. Because again, they didn't have to open it. They could have opened it next week, right? Could have opened his window next week. And that would have given them more time. But they opened it specifically with the thought process of, we got 3 games left. 21 days is 3 weeks. If he's going to play in the regular season, we ought to get him ramped up now. We want to get him back on the practice field. We want to get him some reps, even if it's individual reps, even though he's not participating in team activities. We want to get him out there. We want to get that, pec firing off. We want to test it out, see where he is, and kind of gradually bring him along in a practice setting to see how he holds up physically. And if he checks every single box, then he may be able to return to the field. So some good news late in the season, right? More good news on the injury front. We'll talk about that a little bit later on when we get to the injury report. But let's transition to the film from the Saints game as we get ready to turn the page and direct all of our attention to the Philadelphia Eagles in our Week 16 matchup against those nasty, dirty birds. So I went into the Saints game, in the film rather, with the expectation that I was going to walk away feeling really good about the game, better than I did, after it was done, knowing that we missed a bunch of opportunities to, blow the Saints out and win comfortably, right? And that's not what happened. Now, I'll say this. There are certain aspects of the game that I was impressed with. I thought the pass rush was actually really good in the game. I liked the activity up front. I liked the ability to get your hands up when you knew you weren't getting to the quarterback. We had a couple of batted balls in some key spots in the game. Almost had another one on that 4th down. Newton got his hands up and just missed batting that ball down. So I like that. I thought it was Dorrance Armstrong's best game probably since Arizona in week 4. And I think it was the first time he had a sack since like week 5 or 6. He was super active. He should have had another sack that was taken from him because of Benjamin St-Juste's penalty. But he was active. Dante Fowler Jr. was outstanding in the game. I thought Deron Payne had one of his best games of the season. So there was a lot to like about the activity up front. Obviously, Marshawn Lattimore playing and playing well and not being targeted at all is a great sign. But he's going to get some work this week. So, that was another thing to like. Overall, I like what I saw out of the corners in particular, minus Benjamin St-Juste and his 3 snaps. But I like what I saw out of the corners in particular. There are some concerns if Jeremy Chin can't go at safety and how they're going to, do their rotations there. But I can tell you one thing. Jordan McGee got in the game at linebacker, an actual defensive snap. So, yeah, that was nice to see, right? Offensively, you have to love what Terry and Jaden were able to do. They're starting to make beautiful music together. I think the thing that was the most exciting about the outcome, the offense rather, on Sunday was just the movement of Terry McLaurin. Constantly in motion, left side, right side, slot, outside. He did it all in that game. And that needs to continue. That doesn't need to be we just did this post-bye week because we had a lot of time on our hands to prepare for the Saints game. That needs to be a part of the game plan every week. 17 should not be stationary. We should be treating him like Waldo, and defenses should be like, where's 17? Well, he's on the left side. He's on the right side. He's in motion. He's in the slot, right? He needs to be all over the damn place like he was in this game. So that was something that was really good to see. But the biggest takeaway from the game was the offensive line. Oh my stars. Were they bad? And I was not prepared for just how bad they were in the game. Watching it live, you knew it wasn't one of their better performances. You knew that Michael Dieter struggled, and you tried to chalk it up to just, oh, Michael Dieter was in there, no Tyler Biadasz, the offensive line struggled. Okay. No, that's not acceptable, and that's not what I watched on film. Shout out to the mob for, partaking in the film session today and witnessing a total beating up front that was handed out to the Commanders' offensive line by the Saints D-line. They kicked our ass up front. They beat us like we stole something up front. It was actually scary how poor we played up front and how much more physical the Saints were. I'm telling myself to make me feel better, because I haven't seen this lack of physicality from this group all season long. This is the first time I've seen them get their asses handed to them in a manner that was embarrassing like this. I'm telling myself that this was a byproduct of being off for a week. They turned the switch off. There wasn't a ton of contact. And then you have 2 weeks away from, real physical combat. And they weren't physically nor mentally prepared initially for what the Saints were bringing to the table. And it was jarring. Like, Michael Dieter was absolutely horrid, and he can't start again. Like, if Tyler Biadasz can't go, I would much rather them go in a different direction than Michael Dieter, which they're not going to do. He's gonna be their backup center. That's a scary proposition if we were to get into a situation where he has to play against a physical group up front. He was awful, but it wasn't just him. Nick Allegretti was not good. Brandon Coleman, you could argue, was the best of the group, and we all know he wasn't great in this game. But more times than not, he did something in this game. Allegretti was bad. Cosme was bad, very bad. And Dieter was horrid in this game. And Wiley didn't make it any better. It was a collective ass kicking up front by the Saints. Pass rush wise, there were times where Jaden had all day to throw. They did their job. There were other times where somebody got beat individually and Jaden had to escape. The pass protection, I would say, was a C-. It wasn't horrible. It could have been a lot better. And the bad part was a lot of times the Saints only rushed 4 and were able to kind of force Jaden off of the spot, if you will. Now, this was not constant throughout the game. There were only certain moments. There were times where Jaden was able to, stand back there, deliver the football. And even on some of the sacks, Jaden had plenty of time, ample time to get the football out, and he just didn't, right? But in the run game, oh my goodness, we were thrashed in the run game. I was taken aback by the consistent ass kicking the Saints delivered up front. And all I could keep saying is, if this takes place against the Eagles, we have no shot. None. It won't even be remotely close. We thought it was bad the first time. If they play that way, and they're not going to, and I've come to the realization that they're not going to. I really think coming off of the bye, they just weren't like physically prepared. And maybe they didn't think the Saints were going to play as hard as they did. I don't know. But they were slow to the spots, to the certain landmarks that you need to get to. We were lethargic. They beat us to the punch. They were way more physical than us. There was a lot of blowback that they were delivering. John Ridgeway ate our lunch. Brian Brzee ate our lunch. Cam Jordan ate our lunch. Colin Sanders, man, he destroyed Sam Cosmi in this game. Destroyed him. I'm like, if you can't block Colin Sanders, what happens when it's Jalen Carter, right? He's going to get up for Jalen Carter. He's going to get up for Jalen Carter. He understands the matchup that's in front of him this weekend. So that was a total ass kicking up front. One that I know they're not proud of. And DQ talked about it on Monday. Now I know why he was a little disappointed with the run game. And look, we were disappointed just watching it live, but he had a chance to consume the film before I did. So I know now why he was super disappointed with the run game and wanted more from it, because we got our asses handed to us. And DQ has preached all December long. It starts up front. And I'm pretty sure this was not lost on him watching the film, that we got our asses handed to us. And I'm pretty sure they're going to challenge the offensive line this week, because the last time we played the Eagles, we got our asses handed to us in that game as well. It was pretty much Jalen Carter that did most of the damage. And I'm going to say it right now. That whole pull scheme, you can't pull in front of Jalen Carter. Not in this game. Not unless you're going to, as soon as you pull a guy, you're going to have the center or somebody else pin him immediately. You can't pull and have nobody touch Jalen Carter. That's what we did the last game, and he absolutely wrecked it. You have to block him on every single play. It can't be a play where you pull and you just escort him into the backfield, because that's essentially what you're doing. That's what we did last time. You cannot do it this time. We have to be 10 times more physical than we were in the game against New Orleans, or we will get our lunch eaten right in front of our face. They'll turn us upside down and dump out all of our lunch money. All of the change in our pocket, all of the loose bills, all of it will go tumbling down. And they'll take all of our lunch money, go buy lunch, and eat it in our face. And the good thing is, and the reason that I can sleep at night after watching this film, is this isn't who we've been all season. This isn't who we are. If this were, week 2, I'd be very alarmed, because there wouldn't have been enough of a body of work, enough of a sample size for me to be able to say, this isn't who we are. If this were week 2 or week 3, I would be very concerned. But it's week 15. I've seen enough of this team up front to know that's not a good representation of who they've been this season. So I'm going to chalk it up to, you came off the bye and you probably thought that New Orleans was going to kind of lay down for you, and you had another thing coming. You had a number of guys out there that were playing their asses off. John Ridgeway in particular, out for revenge. You saw the post. I got my lick back. He played like he had a chip on his shoulder. They played hard. They played harder than we did. And even with that said, we were the better team, and we should have scored 31 points. We should have scored 31 points. You could argue 38, because we should have scored a touchdown on the opening possession of the second half. That would have been 21. We kicked the field goal at the end of the third quarter. And then you had the 2 possessions in the fourth quarter where you missed Terry, where those should have been touchdowns. You should have scored 38 points in the game. This should have been a 38-10 game. And instead it ended up 20-19. And despite not being able to block up front in the run game, you had ample opportunity. And this is why I'm so positive. That's why I'm so encouraged by this team, is despite not having your fastball, to hell with your fastball, we didn't even have a changeup. We had nothing offensively in terms of the run game. It didn't really assist us. If not for Jaden Daniels' legs, the run game was pretty much non-effective. And yet, I've been consistent in saying while the effectiveness of the run game is key to our success, it's the stick-to-itiveness that's important. When we get away from the run, we don't stand a chance. And we didn't get away from the run. So it allowed play action fake. It allowed those opportunities to still have meaning. Similar to the Bengals game, right? We were very ineffective running the football that night. I think Brian Robinson Jr. had 15 carries for 31 yards or something like that. But it was because we stuck with the run that it allowed for those shot plays that we hit to Terry in that game and the big plays to be made because we kept running the football, even though it wasn't super effective. The biggest takeaway is we got to be much better in the trenches against Philadelphia. Got to be better against the run. Kendre Miller had too much success late in that game. Obviously, that last possession, I'll chalk that up to you were expecting pass and you got run. You were willing to concede run in that situation because you'll trade time for 12 yards, right? So I want to see us be more effective against the run, but more importantly, we got to be more physical up front. And we're going to have to do a better job of making sure we protect Jaden in this game. And again, it's not just the offensive line. It's Jaden protecting himself, getting rid of the football. It's, guys not getting hung up on, off the line of scrimmage, getting jammed, whatever the case may be. Cliff Kingsbury, moving guys around, motion, things of that nature. Quick pass game, right? Ball got to come out quickly just to, keep you ahead of schedule. But we definitely and the run game needs to be more effective. Well, a lot of lateral runs, right? Because Dieter was getting his ass kicked. Cosme was getting his ass kicked. The interior of the offensive line was a sieve on Sunday. And because of it, we saw more runs to the perimeter for Brian Robinson Jr. than we are accustomed to seeing. And that is not who we've been consistently. That's not when he's at his best. When his shoulders are square to the line of scrimmage, that's when he's at his best. When his shoulders are parallel to the sideline, that's when the defense wins. It's not who he is as a runner. And too often, his shoulders were parallel to the sideline because we didn't trust the interior of our line to get the job done. So I can tell you right now, the trenches will be priority number one in this game against Philadelphia. That's not something that should surprise you. I'm not breaking news to you, but coming off of a game in which we got our asses kicked up front, I need to see it on Sunday. I need to see it. And knowing that they beat us up pretty good in the trenches the first game, I need them to strap it up. Hard hat, lunch pail, and it's time to go to work. If we beat the Eagles, it will be because we won up front on both sides of the football. Last game, defensively, we beat them up pretty good for 3 quarters up front. We harassed Hurts. We sacked him. We almost knocked him out of the game with a concussion. We bottled him up. We didn't let Saquon out. And we were really good for 3 quarters. We got to come with that same level of physicality. And I think they understand what this is all about. I think they understand what's at stake here. DQ started off his press conference by talking about the Eagles and what they've been in the division and how they've taken care of business this year and how they're essentially the Don Dadas of this division this year. Pretty sure he doesn't have to explain that to them after having already played them once. I can tell you something too, and we'll get into greater detail when we get to DQ's press conference. he was pissed off about one question that was asked to him because he's a competitor. And I'll explain that when we get there. But there are a lot of things that were encouraging from the film that I already knew going in, and all I did was have that confirmed by watching it. That what happened to Terry the first game against Philadelphia, shit ain't happening in this game. I probably will be disappointed if Terry doesn't have 100 yards receiving this game. Because that keeping him on one side of the field bullshit, that ain't happening in this game. And I'm excited. The Eagles don't know what we look like with KJ Osborne on the field. Like, that's a new wrinkle. Hell, we don't even know what it looks like with KJ Osborne on the field. It's a new wrinkle. Just something else for them to think about. We can throw out there another guy that can contribute, that can help this team. And so that's something else that they'll probably be able to feature and throw into the mix this week as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it. And I think I wouldn't be shocked if Diami gets behind Darius Slay in this game. You know, I wouldn't be shocked if we take a vertical shot to Diami and he gets one this week. Was really impressed with Diami. And that's not telling you anything that you don't already know, but everybody stepped up. Everybody at the receiver position stepped up. Jamison Crowder, Diami Brown, Olamide Zaccheaus, Terry McLaurin, they all stepped up. They all stepped up. So let's get to in other news. And we heard from DQ today, obviously. We heard from Jaden Daniels, the birthday boy. So he turned 24 today. So happy born day to our QB1. And Mike Sainristil brought him a little mini cake. And, you know, serenaded him with a little happy birthday song. It was dope. And can somebody explain to me who was standing next to Jaden? Apparently somebody lost a bet. And somebody was standing next to Jaden with like some sort of costume on. I couldn't see who it was, and I couldn't make out what they had on. But if anybody knows, I would love to know who that was and what the bet was and what he was wearing. Because he looked like he was wearing, it almost looked like he was wearing a Ku Klux Klan, like a KKK costume, which he clearly wasn't. I saw him walking away out of the conference room, and it was like a little white, you know, hood. And so I couldn't really tell what the hell he had on. But anyway, I wonder what it was. I wonder what the bet was and what he had on. But before we get to anything that was said by Jaden or DQ, we got to get to a very all-important injury report for the Commanders and the Eagles. Let's take a look at what we have here. So, pretty robust injury report. As we know, we left that game with a bunch of nicks and bruises. Nothing too serious, though, but a lot of question marks surrounding guys as to whether they'll be available for Sunday's game versus the Eagles or not. The good thing is, even if they're not available for the Eagles game, they should be available for the Falcons game the following week, which I hate to admit this, but that's the more important game of the two. I want both of them, as you already know. But the Falcons game means more than this one. Now, if the Falcons were somehow, able to lose to the Giants and we won, then that game wouldn't be as important. It still could be, but assuming that they win, which they should, then that game becomes, whether we win or not, that game becomes ultra important. So, the bulk of the guys that sustain injuries that we're not sure if they'll play this week, they should be back next week, worst case scenario. So, Cosme illness, I'm not surprised that he's dealing with the illness. I was shocked that more guys on that offensive line, being that Tyler Biadasz came down with something. Those offensive linemen are all around each other. I was actually surprised that you didn't see more offensive linemen, dealing with something. But hopefully Cosme will be fine by the time we get to Sunday. Rather him have it now than to have it like it did with Biadasz and crop up the morning of. Ertz. So this is a bit convoluted here, right? Ertz always gets rest on Wednesdays. But this says concussion, NIR, rest. Wait, what? So which one is it? Is he resting and it's non-injury related, which is what NIR means? Or does he have a concussion? We know he has a concussion. So why would you even put NIR, rest? Like they made it seem like, oh, he's fine. Yeah, he's got a little bit of a concussion, but he's good. He's just resting. No, he has a concussion. Like Jeremy Chins doesn't say NIR, rest. But I digress. Ertz isn't playing this week, if I had to guess. Zane Gonzalez, we found out during the press conference, both he and Greg Joseph were expecting little ones today. Amazing that two guys, both at the same position, don't know each other. I can't say Adam from Eve because most kickers know each other. It's a small fraternity, but the fact that they're both expecting at the exact same time and had to miss practice because the pregnancies and the birth and the delivery was imminent, it's crazy. So he did not practice today, did Zane Gonzalez. We just talked about Jonathan Allen and his pectoral. He was limited. Obviously, he did individuals, did not do anything contact related. Jeremy Chin, this was a pleasant surprise. So Nikki Javala tweeted out at the media portion of practice that Jeremy Chin was out with the team and doing individual work, which none of us expected to hear about him or Zach Ertz this week. Now, that does not mean he's going to play at all. That doesn't mean that. But the fact that he was even out there, just 3 days removed from being out cold on the field, says a lot. Until otherwise notified, he's not playing in my eye. But to be limited on Wednesday? Wow. Like, I will say, wasn't expecting that. Bit of a surprise. Pleasant news, but again, I'm still going off of the assumption that he and Ertz aren't playing until they are. Michael Dieter, ankle limited. Cleveland Farrell, knee rest, which is what he usually gets on Wednesday. Frankie Louvu, non-injury related, just getting some rest. Same with Terry McLaurin. This one is a little interesting. Wide receiver Luke McCaffrey, shoulder limited. Look, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, feels like we're setting the table, right, for Luke to be inactive on Sunday. Somebody's got to sit down unless you're going to keep 6 receivers active on Sunday. Somebody's got to sit down. Somebody's got to have a seat. KJ Osborne is going to be active this week. They really like Jamison Crowder, and he's returning punts. OZ's not sitting down. You already know OZ's not sitting down. Terry's not sitting down. Diami's not sitting down. I'm not saying. I'm just saying they could put somebody else back there to return kickoffs. Right? They'll put Olamide Zaccheaus back there to return kickoffs. Like, that's not a thing. So it ain't like, oh, we got to keep Luke because he's returning kickoffs. No, they can put somebody else back there to do that. I'm looking at the shoulder. I'm looking at limited, and I'm like, interesting. We'll see. I could be making something out of nothing. He could be just fine and active on Sunday, and they have 6 receivers up. Or Jamison Crowder is the odd man out, and they put OZ back on punts again, right? We'll see. Deron Payne back. Remember, he went into the game against New Orleans dealing with a back. It cropped up on Friday last week, but he was able to play. He was limited in practice today, but the assumption is he should be fine. And then Dante Fowler Jr. growing full. So really interesting injury report for the Commanders, for the good guys this week, starting off on Wednesday. It's a very promising injury report with Jeremy Chin. You know, Ertz is a little bit sketchy. I'm assuming that he'll be DNP tomorrow as well. But Chin being limited, wow, what a pleasant surprise. He was excellent against the Eagles the last time. It'd be great if he could play again. But again, we'll see. Now we go from the good guys to the ops. And I hate the Eagles. I hate everything about the Philadelphia Eagles, including how they do their injury report. Like, this is a waste of time. They do this every time. Every single time we play them, they got 50 guys on the injury report. Nothing's wrong with any of them, and they do this shit every time. Now, it's not their fault. They have to report if a guy sits out of practice, but they do this shit every single time. Every one of these dudes is playing on Sunday, more likely than not. None of these guys have anything really wrong with them. They're just sitting dudes down. So we really don't need to go through this. The only guy that is of any note is Bryce Huff, who they just activated his 21-day window like we did with Jon Allen. He's coming off of wrist surgery, and he was limited. Everybody else here is perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. And is going to play. Maybe Sidney Brown with a concussion that was a DNP is another guy to maybe keep an eye on, but he's not a starter. He's not an impactful player. So there's nothing to see here. All their guys are good, which is what I want. I don't want any excuses. All their guys are good, and there's nothing to see here. No guy to be like, oh, he might not play. Everybody's fine. Everybody's fine. So DQ started off his press conference by, talking about the Eagles and, their dominance this season and what they stand for. And, it's going to be a challenge. And he's like, we're happy to get them back at our place. Right. So then he transitioned to, it was a little light moment in the press conference early when they asked about the growth in Jaden Daniels and what is the thing that they've seen the most from him in terms of growth at this point of his rookie season. And DQ said sliding, right? And everybody, broke out in laughter, and DQ was cheesing ear to ear. He made a funny, he made a funny. And, he made, it was a joke, but he did, remind them that, look, I remind y'all, though, first couple weeks of the season, that's all the hell y'all wanted to talk about, was him getting down, protecting himself, yada, yada, yada. So he's like, that was once upon a time a big deal, but it's not. He's, done a great job protecting himself. I told you I wasn't worried about his ability to protect himself. He did it in college. He's always been this size. Like, he didn't just lose all this weight or something. Like, he's been this size his whole career. And he doesn't miss a ton of football. So he talked about his growth as a passer, hanging in the pocket, going through the progressions, finding the right place to go with the ball. He's like, one of the biggest superpowers that he possesses is the ability to take care of the football. As a rookie, it's so rare that a young player comes in and is very cognizant of where to go with the football. So he talked about that, right? Then he talked about he talked about Jonathan Allen and he called it remarkable, the progress that he's made. He said he doesn't look like a guy that has gone through pec surgery. He said normally when you go through something like pec surgery, one side of your body looks bigger than the other. Obviously, the side that's unaffected and didn't have surgery. But he's like, he's a different specimen. Like, he looks perfectly fine and normal. And he's not normal because normally you don't recover this quickly. Now, one thing, like I said earlier, that we weren't aware of is that it was partially torn, not fully torn. And so being that it was only partially torn, it gave him a quicker recovery time and an opportunity to potentially get back if things trended in the right direction. And obviously those things have happened to this point. And I read an article that featured Jonathan Allen, with a few quotes of him talking about wanting to be a part of this process. Again, he's never been a part of a winning team. He's never been a part of an actual like winning season here in Washington that resulted in a playoff berth. He's never been a part of that. I'm trying to think. 18 wasn't a winning season. 17 wasn't a winning season. 19 was one of the worst seasons. 20 was a playoff season, but it wasn't a winning season. He's never experienced a winning season here because Rivera didn't have a winning season. So we were guaranteed to have a winning season this year. Yeah. So he wants to be a part of that, and he wants to, be a part of the stretch run and helping his team make the playoffs. So DQ said they're not going to miss any steps. Right? They're not going to skip any steps. They're not going to miss any markers, like always with any injury. They're going to make sure that he's fully ready to go before they put him out there. So he talked about, Jonathan Allen's recovery and how, they're surprised that. And he even talked about when they first found out. He said right after surgery, they kind of found out that there was a chance because it happened so early in the season. This was a week 6 injury, that there was an outside shot that he could be back before the end of the season. But, you don't want to get your hopes up. I mean, they said we needed to see him hit certain markers, which he's hit with strength and, the ability to push and pull and all of that stuff. And so there's a real shot that he could be back before the end of the season. He talked about, what else did DQ talk about? Talked about practice. I mean, there wasn't a lot of good stuff from his press conference today. He talked about practice and, guys being ready and, it's not a 53-man roster, but it's 65 because of the practice squad guys and, getting them reps and scout team and stuff like that, not a real big deal. So I told you and I teased earlier that there was a question that DQ was not too pleased with, but he answered it. DQ's he's not an asshole, but you can always tell because DQ is he's so jovial, right? Like we haven't seen DQ one time be like annoyed with the media that wasn't like post game after a loss. Like visibly, the most upset we've seen him was after week 1 against Tampa Bay. He was pissed after that game. I haven't seen him that mad before or since. Like they thought they were going to go to Tampa and win, play way better than they did. They didn't, and he was pissed, right? And we heard that Adam Peters was pissed. They were pissed after week 1, right? So I know what it looks like. But usually he's happy-go-lucky, crack a joke and a smile, answer your question, give you a nice 2-3 minute answer on your question if it's a good one. But if he doesn't love your question, you might get a sentence or two and it'll be 15 seconds and then it's on to the next. And I forgot your boy's name, the one that is with JP on Mitch Tisler asked him, and it's a good question. I mean, but you can tell the competitor in DQ kind of came out. So he said, you guys have been close a number of times this year, playing, upper echelon, or as I like to call them, the upper crust of the NFL, better teams, good quality opponents, Ravens, Steelers, Eagles, etc. Right? And you haven't been able to win. You've been close, but you haven't been able to pull it out. Is part of the process of, this recalibration and taking the next step, being able to find a way to win some of those games against good opponents. And DQ, you could tell his whole demeanor kind of switched, like, yeah, I'm sick of losing to these motherfuckers. And he was like, in order to be a big dog, you got to be the big dog. And so, yeah, we got to start winning some of those games. And that was it. And you could tell, like, the competitor started to come out. And you could tell he was not happy because they want to win some of these games. They don't want to have to answer those types of questions, And they know it starts up front. And they know they got to play for 4 quarters. So, then he had the whole conversation about the kickers. And they asked him, did he hear anything about the play against the Saints at the end with the clock stopping from the league? And he's like, nope. Did you turn it in? And he said, nope. So that was DQ. Jaden, obviously today was is his birthday, 24th birthday. I talked about the Mike Sainristil, little cupcake / mini cake that he brought out. That was cool. And so, of course, he got probably 3 or 4 birthday questions that he answered. They asked him about his charity work, which is always good. And then they asked him about, the difference that a year makes. They asked him about, which I think he's had a question similar to this multiple times, but, going this deep into the season, what's the difference? And he's like, in college, you do play bowl games, so you do play this late in the season, but there's a break, right, between your final game in conference, or if you make it to the conference championship game, and then the bowl game or whatever, the playoffs or whatever. There's a break in between that. There's no break in the NFL. It's like we were fortunate enough to have a bye, but there's no break, and so that's the biggest thing, is having to adjust to that. He talked about the Eagles and the threats and the challenges that they pose. He said, look, we played them once. We know what they're about, and we know that they're one of the best teams in the league. They're physical up front in the trenches, and we got to match their physicality, et cetera, et cetera. So he talked about that. He talked about not feeling like he needs to do more. They asked him, well, is there a sense of no, Zach Ertz, no Austin Eckler, no Noah Brown? Those are your number 2, 3, and 4, leading receivers. Do you feel the need to do more because those guys are absent? And he's like, nah, I just got to go out and do my part. We got guys that are playmakers, guys that can make things happen. I just got to get them the football. That was basically, like, if there wasn't a lot to his press conference today either. Lot more kind of personal stuff. I will tell you this. I watched the what is it called? What's my phone? I think it's called The Boardroom. But let me double check. I don't want to be giving out false information. Let me see. Yeah. So Jaden Daniels had a interview with Katie and Travis Scott, where it's called the boardroom, where they ask questions and he answered them. And it's about 12 and a half minutes long. If you are a Jaden Daniels fan, I think it's worth watching. It's pretty good. It's in depth. They ask a lot of good questions, and you really get some insight. He did this interview on the bye week, and I think it was a really, really introspective, interesting interview by Jaden. I think you'll enjoy it. It's worth your time to check it out. So, make sure you tune in tomorrow on the show. We'll be doing our ticket giveaway for the game. I'll be interested to see what the split is at this game. I totally expect Eagles fans to infiltrate and have a massive presence, but just how massive? You know, this shouldn't be a full Eagles fan takeover, but you already know what it is. We haven't gotten to the point where we're boxing out Eagles and Giants and Cowboys fans yet. That's not where we are yet. But this is a pretty big game. I'd like to think the fans would show up for this one, and it should be at least 65-35. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm going to do my part. So make sure you tune in tomorrow as we start the process of giving away 2 tickets to the game. So I digress. Let's go ahead and take our first look at the Philadelphia Eagles as they come to Northwest this season and riding a 10-game win streak, 12-2, tied for first in the NFC overall. Lot riding on this game for them, lot riding on this game for us, but none of the pressure sits with us. You know, the pressure is on them. They're supposed to beat us, right? They're the better team. They're winners of 10 straight. They beat the likes of the Ravens and the Steelers. And who are we, right? Just the little old Commanders, right? We're nobodies. They're the ones playing for the #1 seed and home field advantage throughout in the NFC. Not us. We're just trying to get in, right? In year one of a recalibration, we're just trying to find our north. I like where we sit. I like this opportunity that's being presented to us. And it's games like this that are going to help shape and mold this program moving forward. You want to be considered a threat in this division. We're not ready to win this division yet, obviously. You know, we had our chance earlier this season. We had games that were there for the taking and we didn't do it. But it's year one. Like, you have to constantly remind yourself we're ahead of schedule because they spoiled us. You know, so it's good to be spoiled, by the way. It beats the alternative. But we jumped the gun on thinking we were ready. We weren't ready yet, and that's okay. But what we can do is establish that not only are we here, but we're going to be here for a while and we ain't going nowhere. And the only way you get people's attention is by beating them. Not coming close. Not almost getting the job done. Nobody respects that. Got to beat them. And everything leading up to this game says that the Eagles should beat us. You know, they went to Baltimore and won. They just handily beat Pittsburgh. They've won 10 straight. They're beating people up in the trenches. Their defense is suffocating right now. They're #1 in just about every statistical category. But I can't stress this enough. outside of the Ravens, none of the teams they played have one of them ones at quarterback. Not the ones of late. They played against Joe Burrow. But our offense is a dynamic offense. And we're just scratching the surface. And the beauty of what we're doing right now is we're a top 5 scoring offense in the league. We're a top 5 offense overall, yardage-wise, in the league. And we're doing this without top 5 talent. You know why we're doing it. We're doing it because we got one of them ones. We don't have the talent the Eagles have. We don't have the talent the Ravens have. But we still find a way to get it done. Why? Because we got one of them ones. We can compete with the likes of the Philadelphia Eagles and any other team in the league for that matter. And competing and winning are two different things. You got to cross over into a different territory. This season, we've been too content with competing with good teams. Oh, we only lost to the Ravens by a touchdown. We weren't happy about it. I'm not going to sit here and act like we were all content, but it was made known that, hey, we coming. And we're coming because we're good enough to go on the road and only lose by a touchdown to Baltimore in the first year of a recalibration. The Broncos couldn't do it. And they're not in year 1, they're in year 2. And they went up there with a rookie quarterback and they got their brains bashed in, right? We are not the same. Because when the game was on the line, Jaden Daniels said, nah, when we could have gotten our brains bashed in, when it was 27-13, and the Ravens were trying to run away and hide in any other season, that would have ended up 41-13, 34-13. Jaden Daniels said, nah, not on my watch. We ain't going out like that. And that thing ended up 30-23 because he wasn't having that shit. And he made play after play, 4th down after 4th down because he wasn't having that shit. We were up 10-6 against Philadelphia. Played our worst game, arguably, of the season, and we was up in the 4th quarter. But we didn't find a way to win. So this is an opportunity. This is the last opportunity, really, this season until you get to the postseason. It's the last opportunity in the regular season to prove that you're capable of beating somebody the ilk of a Philadelphia. Because all you're going to see in the postseason are good teams. Ain't no more Dallases or Carolinas or Clevelands or Arizonas or Tennessees for you to beat up on. You make it to the playoffs, everybody's good. And the likelihood is you're either going to see this Eagles team again, Detroit, or Minnesota. That's the likelihood if we make it to the playoffs. When we make it to the playoffs. So you got one more chance because Atlanta ain't good. They're not good. But if we don't play good enough, they're good enough to beat us. But they don't qualify as one of the teams that we're going to see in the playoffs. That's not what Atlanta looks like on paper to us. And damn sure Dallas ain't. That's family business, though. That's different. So this game signifies your final opportunity this season to beat a team with some chops, to prove to yourself that you're capable of beating any team in the playoffs. Because if you can beat the 12-2 Philadelphia Eagles, that means you can beat the 12-2 Minnesota Vikings or the 12-2 Detroit Lions or any other team in the NFC for that matter. Well, here's your opportunity to prove you up to the task. What you gonna do? Coming close ain't going to get it done. We came close to beating Philadelphia twice last year. Don't nobody care. We came close to beating them earlier this season. Don't nobody care. At some point, you want their respect, gotta beat them. Here's your chance. We'll talk more about how you get that done tomorrow on the show. But the opportunity, which is all you can ever ask for, is here. So we got to get it done. And I like the fact that there's going to be different things. Like the Eagles are who they are defensively. Like they don't do a lot of, they don't do a lot of exotic shit defensively. They are who they are. So we got tape now. We got film as to how they defended us the last time, the mistakes we made, how we can be better. But we moving Terry around now. We got KJ Osborne now. We got Marshawn Lattimore now. Shit's different. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. We'll see if we're up to the task or not. But anyway, I digress. Let's get to social media maneuvers. I'm a midnight marauder. Y'all know what it is. Big shout out to the mob and my Patreon supporters for continuing to hold the kid down. You are the heartbeat of the Louie T Network. Can't thank you guys enough for all that you do. And so with that said, let's get to the comment section and see what you guys have to say. So Navy Ramjet, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Navy Ramjet writes, blessings and Merry Xmas to you and your family, Lou. Likewise. Likewise, Navy Ramjet. And congratulations again, man. Congratulations again. Beautiful addition to your family. The team is undefeated in my daughter's fandom. Going 2-0 this week. Thoughts on Penix? We struggle against backups at times. Adds intrigue. So the whole Michael Penix situation, like, I don't have enough bandwidth for it right now. Like, I want to talk to you about it a lot. I consume some more Michael Penix Jr. conversations because that's the next opponent. But I'm all in on Philadelphia. I really can't look forward to that matchup. The only thing I had space for was whether that game was going to get flexed to Sunday night or Saturday night. That's the only thing that I was really truly, because I was going to have to shape and mold my holiday schedule around where that game was. So I was heavily invested in that. But as far as Penix and, the situation with the Falcons, we got all week to talk about that next week. I'm really locked in on Philadelphia. But I'll tell you this. I will be front and center on Sunday at 1 o'clock watching that Giants-Falcons game because I had almost no interest in that game beforehand. I want to see what Michael Penix. I watched him in the preseason against the Miami Dolphins. Saw what he could do. They are really high on him. They didn't make this move on accident. Like, they didn't make this move because we want him to give us a spark. They think that this kid is a star. That's why they drafted him. Despite having Kirk Cousins, who they just gave $180 million to, 90 of it fully guaranteed on a 4-year deal, they still went out and drafted this kid because they think he's a star. And they think he's ready to rock and roll right out of the gate. So I'm anxious to see what he's going to look like. He poses a whole nother set of challenges to us that we weren't going to have to deal with Kirk Cousins, which I'm disappointed. I wanted my shot at a mentally and physically battered and bruised Kirk Cousins. I wanted to be able to take advantage of that. Hell, we owed him an ass whooping anyway, but not going to be able to deliver it now. Not to him, at least. But that don't mean Michael Penix can't take it on his behalf. But we'll get to that next week, right? Don't look at him as a backup. I'll just say that, Navy Ramjet. Don't look at him as a backup. He is the starter now and into the future in Atlanta. Kirk Cousins is no longer a starting quarterback in this league until he finds a new home. Kirk Cousins is now the backup in Atlanta. So I'll just say it that way. GT7, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. GT7 writes, hey, Louie. What's up, GT? Says, I'm glad Chin's concussion doesn't seem to be that serious. We'll see. We know concussions do vary in severity. So it's just a little bit like shocking to me because this man shit was locked up on the ground. Like immediately when he hit the ground, you had the dudes waving to the medical staff, hey, y'all, come on out here, right? Like that's not the type of concussion that dudes just come back like, you know what I'm saying, and snap back from. But I'm still not buying that he'll be ready to rock. But again, he'll be back next week, I feel, no matter what. Same with Ertz. And that's the important part. Is, you know, these are situations that we expect them to be able to come back and help us, you know, in arguably what would be our biggest game of the season next week against Atlanta on Sunday Night Football. But it would be great to have him this week against Philadelphia. Be really good to have him this week. He says, limited today is great. Yeah, it is. It's great news. News that we weren't expecting. All right. I told you most times I don't like surprises on the injury report. That's a pleasant surprise. Lattimore covers Brown or Smith. I think he should stay on Smith and let Frozone cover Brown. I honestly believe they're just going to leave them on the side of the field that they're on. Like, I think they got confidence in both of their abilities to cover the Eagles receivers. So I don't really think there's going to be this emphasis on, hey, you got to stay with Brown. If I were to say something, I would think Smitty would be more of a tougher cover for Frozone than A.J. Brown because A.J. Brown's not fast, right? He's just big. And that could be a problem for Mikey as well, but it wasn't last game. It wasn't last time. So I would prefer, you know, Marshawn on Smitty just because he's faster and he's more of a vertical threat. But I don't think they really are too concerned about either one of them receivers in a way that forces them, hey, Marshawn, you got to travel with either one. They're really good, but I don't think it necessitates them having to travel with either one. Like, we trust both of y'all on either side to cover whomever's in front of you. So I think they're just going to roll. I'm confident that they're going to just roll on each side. But you get into some man-to-man coverage, you know, some specific looks, and you may see Marshawn running across the formation with AJ or Smitty if you're in man-to-man coverage. But I just think they're going to keep them on their respective sides of the field. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. King of the Bluegrass writes, if you took JD5 out of the 2024 draft class, what would you grade it? My grade is a D. You talking about our draft class? First of all, you know better than that, King of the Bluegrass. You can't grade a draft class 15 weeks into its rookie season. Like, that's ridiculous. So let's go through it quickly. I'm not giving it a grade, but we've seen promise from just about every dude in the draft class. Now, would you match up where they were drafted with what they provide? Like, first of all, just off the strength of Frozone and Jaden Daniels, and you say remove Jaden, just off the strength of Frozone, the draft can't be a D, right? Newton hasn't been super impactful, but you got to remember, he came off of missing the entire offseason, foot surgery. He's probably not fully himself yet, right? He won't probably be the Johnny Newton we drafted him to be till next year. That's my guess, right? Where he has a full offseason. Because remember, all that time while all of his fellow draft mates were working out, getting ready, were in tip-top shape, he was on the shelf with foot surgery. So even when he was ready, he still had to knock off, rust, knock off weight that he might have put on, get back into, there was a lot that came with that. So he wasn't able to work on technique and things of that nature. He just had to get ready to play. So I think he's going to be fine. Frozone has been excellent. Ben Sinnott has been really good in his role. Y'all wanted him to be something more than they drafted him to be. Like, I keep telling y'all, they drafted him to be Kyle Juszczyk. They value Kyle Juszczyk in San Francisco, and you're gonna learn to love Ben Sinnott eventually here in Washington in the role that they're gonna put him in. Right? He's eventually gonna be a dual threat guy that can catch it, run it, block, all of that stuff. But right now, he's just really a blocker. So I know a lot of y'all don't want to hear that, but that's the truth of the situation. Brandon Coleman is starting at left tackle. I think he's a guard, but we'll see what he ultimately turns into. Luke McCaffrey hasn't gotten a ton of opportunities to actually catch the football this year, but we know he's talented. We know he can provide, offense, and eventually he'll get some opportunities. But right now, it ain't hitting, right? But it's early. Jordan McGee dealt with an injury similar to Johnny Newton, where he missed pretty much all of the preseason. He played in the Jets game, the first preseason game, and then got hurt the first possession of the first preseason game and was done for the entire preseason and missed the early portion of the season. So he's still kind of, getting his footing under him. So his whole rookie season, I don't want to call it a wash, but he missed so much of it that he's trying to make up for lost time. He's trying to play catch up at this point. Javonte Jean-Baptiste has been a revelation. I was so wrong about him. Didn't love the pick when they made it. He's been good. I've been very satisfied. That's a 7th round pick we're talking about. Very satisfied with what we've gotten out of him. Did I miss anybody? I feel like I missed one player. Dominique Hampton. Again, you're talking about a 5th round pick. So he's still on the roster, still has a chance to contribute down the road. This is why you can't play this game this early. It's too early for that. Because Dominique Hampton could end up being a starter for us in 2 years. Javonte Jean-Baptiste could be a starter for us in 2 years. He might be our starting defensive end next year, taking the Cleveland Farrell role next year. Who knows? Jordan McGee could be the next Bobby Wagner. You don't know what he's going to be. It's too early to tell. Brandon Coleman could end up being an all-pro guard in this league. You have no clue. So it's too early to play that game. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, from what you have seen, are you okay with this offensive line going forward in the years to come as constructed? If not, what would you change? Of course not. I'm not okay with the line. And they're not either. You need 2 tackles to me. Like, Wiley is a Band-Aid and Coleman is a guard. He's a guard. My biggest issue is, where do you put him? You're not putting him, like, Cosme is just got an extension. He's a stalwart on the offensive line. Biotis has been a stud. So we got those 2 positions set in stone. Allegretti has played really well this season. Really well. So, and you signed him to a 3-year deal. So there's no reason to uproot him. He's playing really well. So where do you put Coleman? Because to me, he's a guard. He's not a tackle. And then you can't, like, Wiley's got 1 more year left on his deal. Signed a 3-year contract last year. And so he got 1 more year left, and they might just let him ride it out. So Wiley, I would guess, would be your right tackle again next year. I would be, again, left tackle would be a priority for me. But this is what I'll tell you. Like, depending on where we're drafting and what the board looks like, I'm not reaching for anybody. If the best player available is a corner, well, we can use one of those too. There aren't many things we can't use. So whatever the best player available is in the first 3 rounds, that's probably more so what I'm looking to do. So if that's not a tackle, then I'm not taking a tackle. You see what I'm saying? You follow me? So offensive line wise, though, I'm cool with the interior as is. I would replace both tackles. I would replace both tackles. But can you do that in one offseason effectively? And like many fans have said, do you really want to go into a season with a rookie tackle? You don't. You really don't. You would prefer to draft a guy, develop him. And so my guess is Coleman will be your starting left tackle next year, and Wiley will be your starting right tackle next year. That's my guess. I could be wrong about that. But I think you got at least one more year of this line looking the way that it looks right now. And I know a lot of y'all don't want to hear that, but that's what I think. Now, if they are able to land a blue chip tackle, they'll take them. And they'll throw them into the fray immediately. But my guess is that's not going to happen. And in San Francisco, you got to keep in mind, I keep telling y'all, you got to look at how San Francisco was able to build their empire, like how they were able to structure their situation. They drafted 5th round tackles, Colt McKivitz in the 5th round and shit like that. You know, that's the type of stuff. Now, they also drafted Mike McGlinchey in the 1st round, but they didn't re-sign him, and he went to Denver. But what I'm telling you is they're not afraid to spend the 1st round pick on a tackle, but they also got Colt McKivitz in the 5th round, and he's their starting right tackle, if I'm not mistaken, right now. So they'll also try to find a diamond in the rough. So, which is why Adam Peters wants his 5th and his 6th and his 7th round picks. He doesn't want to just give them shits away. So, no, I'm not okay with the offensive line as constructed moving forward. I would replace both tackles. I'm fine with the interior. I wouldn't be opposed to competition between Allegretti and Coleman for left guard. I wouldn't be opposed to that. Christopher McLaughlin, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. My guy, C-Mac, thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Chris, writes, hey, Lou. What's up, Chris? Hope all is well with you and the family. Likewise, as always. Same. FYI, 7-0 when the defense holds to 24 or less. That's a good number. 2-5 when more than 24. So we went over some of the numbers over the bye week of how we need to win, right? And we've actually done a really good job. I was looking at some of the numbers. I think it was like 3 days ago. And we haven't given up a lot of points. You know, the Cowboys game was a bit alarming, but again, that was a 20-16 game, if I'm not mistaken. What was the score? 13-9. It was 20-9. It was 20-16. I said that right. 20-16 game. What was it? 17. Then we went for 2 and we got it. When all hell broke loose on special teams. So you really can't even put that on the defense. But it says, concerned about the rush defense, 24th at 131.7 yards and 29th in red zone defense, 65%. Question, what would you change? What would you do to change this and why? Well, the hope was when you got Marshawn Lattimore, it would give you a little bit more latitude to be aggressive in the run game if need be. Now, it's a small sample size. The Saints weren't running the ball very effectively. They were down big, so the run game really wasn't a huge part of what they were able to do. But the hope is Marshawn Lattimore's ability to cover, keep everything in front of him, stay on top, et cetera, allows you to pull down a safety, go single high safety, close off the middle of the field, bring a safety down, and have an extra defender in the run game. That would help you shore up the run defense. You really don't want to come out of too high shell if you don't have to. You would prefer to keep two high safeties and be able to stop the run with just your, front seven. But that was the hope. So that would be the remedy to the run game is, hey, be a little bit more aggressive, bring down that defender and see if you can't stop the run now that the numbers should be in your favor. But the red zone defense is a tricky one because a lot of times when we give up something in the red zone, a lot of times it's not on the ground. It's through the air. Like, think about a lot of these games we've had recently when touchdowns have been scored. And think about how many of them were on the ground versus through the air. So Dallas, he threw a pass to CeeDee Lamb for a touchdown, I believe. No, he threw a touchdown pass to Tolbert. He threw the touchdown pass to the tight end, right? The Tolbert one was in the red zone. The other one was not in the red zone to the tight end. I think that was the only 2 touchdowns they scored in the game on offense. I think the rest of their touchdowns came on special teams. You think about the Steelers game, Russ threw a touchdown pass to George Pickens. He threw a touchdown pass to Mike Williams. Trying to think if they ran one in or if he only had 2 touchdowns. No, he had 3. I think he had 3 touchdown passes. Did Russ? I think it was 3. Let me check. I don't got to guess. Trying to remember everything in my head, but I don't have to. That's why you got these mobile devices here. So Russ threw 3 touchdown passes, and Najee Harris ran 1 in. So, and I'm thinking about these touchdown passes. I don't think, and Pat Fryermuth caught one on a was that a 4th down or a 3rd down when they ran the little rub route. So what I'm getting at is in the red zone, I don't think it's a run defense problem for us. I think our biggest issue is covering the pass. We don't get good enough pressure on the quarterback. So he's got time to throw back there, and we don't cover. One of the things we don't really do well, I don't think, is we don't do a good enough job of covering like mesh concepts, natural picks, rubs. That's how the Saints scored their touchdown on that last play of regulation, right? All they did was take the tight end, run him out, had a couple of rubs, and we didn't navigate the traffic well. Early in the season, when we were getting killed by the likes of Malik Neighbors and, guys of that ilk, all they was doing was simple crossing routes, mesh concepts, and we just didn't handle it well. I don't think we do a good enough job of, that kind of stuff. I feel like we need to do a better job of passing stuff off, in and out coverage, things of that nature. But we haven't shown the propensity to be able to do that stuff consistently and cleanly. But some of that is just the players that you have. You don't have guys that are talented enough to pull off some of the stuff that you want to pull off. And so, you got what you got. So I think the biggest issue is we either are not aggressive or we don't do a good enough job of covering routes that involve sorting through traffic. If you want to get us, that's usually the best way to get us. Like if you just line up against us and run a slant or, a fade, we usually do a good job of covering that. It's the shit that you got a bunch formation or you got trips to a side and you get somebody out in the flats and you get two slants, so you get somebody just standing there. Like the Steelers one was so damn simple. Literally, the receiver just turned around like this. And I forget who it was who was covering Pat Frymuth, but he just went into the flats. This shit was so damn easy. He was like, bro, really? That bullshit right there, you couldn't navigate that? But that's the type of shit we be on. So I'd tell you that red zone defense-wise, I would just be more aggressive. Tighter the routes, putting your hands on people, because you don't have as much real estate to cover. We play off. We give people space. I would be a little bit more aggressive. Like, come up, challenge guys, and come with a little bit more pressure on the quarterback. Send 5, send 6, and see what happens. Because us rushing 4, like we did against New Orleans, shit don't work. It usually don't work in our benefit. The rush defense, I already talked about that. I just think you got to add another guy to the mix. You got to add another defender. Easier said than done, but I think that's what you got to ultimately do. Christopher McLaughlin, my guy, C-Matt, thank you for your generosity, gifting 20 new members. Stand up. You 20 members are the newest members of the MOBB, courtesy of our guy, Chris McLaughlin. Big shout out to our guy, Chris. Really appreciate you and your generosity. 20 new memberships. Man, I can't thank you enough for all that you do for the Louie T Network. I tell you that, right, 2/3 of the members of the mob are because of you. But in all seriousness, man, really do appreciate you, and happy holidays to you and yours, man. Really do appreciate you. Thank you once again for your generosity. Nectar, gifted a membership. Really appreciate you. Stand up. You, whomever you are the newest member, courtesy of Nectar. Really appreciate you, Nectar, and thank you for your generosity. Christopher McLaughlin, my guy, writes, hey, Lou, 3 questions. One, who do you expect the kicker to be on Sunday? Zane Gonzalez. 2, how much more aggressive do you expect the coaches to be with the concerns in this area? And 3, which wide receiver do you expect outside of Terry to step up? So they're not going to be aggressive at all. If you're talking about like pursuing kickers, you're talking about for the rest of the season. If you're talking about overall, like in the offseason, I do expect them to be aggressive in the offseason in terms, look, I mean, they signed a kicker this offseason. And obviously we saw what happened with that situation, and it kind of put them in a position that they didn't want to be in, which is why they went out and signed Brandon McManus. If an opportunity to sign a veteran place kicker that they think is really good comes about, they're going to do it. But if that opportunity doesn't present itself, I think you're going to see them be aggressive, not necessarily in the draft per se. I don't think that's a luxury that we have. I think drafting a kicker is a luxury that you can have when, you don't have as many holes as we have on the roster. But I do think they will be aggressive after the draft is over in trying to bring a kicker or 2 into camp to see if they can, identify a guy that might be able to kick at the NFL level. But I do expect them this offseason to be aggressive in trying to solve the kicking situation. Now, I wouldn't write off Austin Seibert if I were you guys. I would not write him off just yet. He was really good for this team for a very long time, and then one game. It's the same thing with OZ returning punts. OZ was solid on punt returns, and he had the one game against Pittsburgh, and everybody got spooked and like, nah, I don't want him back there no more. Austin Seibert was really good for us. He had one game against Dallas, and everybody got spooked. So I wouldn't count him out yet. If he comes back from IR, kicking well, he could be the guy going into next year. But if he comes back from IR and he's not the same Austin Seibert from earlier in the season, I think that's going to force them to be aggressive, because DQ said at the press conference today that the kicking situation has been an issue. Like, this is something that they did not plan for, because that's why they signed Brandon McManus. And they really want to have this rectified. So if somebody doesn't grab this kicking job by the horns before the end of this season, then I expect them to be aggressive next year. And then you said, which wide receiver do I expect outside of Terry to step up? De'Ami Brown. I told you, I've always been a De'Ami Brown fan since probably his third season, maybe. I've been a fan of his. What is this, year 4? So his second season. I felt like he just needed more opportunities. I was not a fan of the draft pick when it was made, because he was a one-trick pony. He did not run routes at North Carolina. We even heard him say that when he was doing his documentary. So I was not a massive fan of his coming out of UNC, but he's grown on me. And I do think that he's talented. And I like him a lot. I think he's got some dog in him. I do. And I want to see him get more opportunities. Spence Calise, been a member for 28 months. Really appreciate you. Spence writes, bring on the Lions with all their injuries. Nah, like, be careful what you wish for. Look, I just want in. I don't really give a shit who the opponent is. I just want in. We'll deal with that when we get there. The name of the game is when they shut the door to the playoffs and they lock it, you're inside. Not outside looking in the window, seeing who's inside, having a good time. You're inside. That's all I care about. That's all I want. I'm not calling anybody out. I just want to go. All right. And then we'll deal with that when we get there. Jado, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB for 14 months. Who writes, JD is going to show Philly why he's one of them ones. Indeed. I'm so looking forward to it. So looking forward to it. So looking forward to it. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Duncan Wright, writes, congrats to you, Lou, and Commanders fans on your great win Sunday. I can hear the condescending tone and nature of your voice. I can hear the sarcasm. Not that any of you had something to do with that. Thanks, Duncan. We appreciate that. Rocky D, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. My guy, Rocky D, writes, hate when local sports channels say we don't need this game like they expect us to lose. The power of the tongue is powerful. That's why I listen to streamers most of the time. Any news on Zach Ertz? No. Nobody really asked DQ about Ertz. He was not at practice today like Trent Chin was. But I think we'll learn more tomorrow, because normally he's out of practice on Wednesday anyway. So I think that's why they were able to get away with the whole concussion / NIR designation, which doesn't make any sense, because if he's got a concussion, then it is injury related. It is not non-injury related. So my guess is tomorrow he will be out of practice, and it is injury related tomorrow. That's my guess. But the truth of the situation is, technically speaking, if you want into the playoffs, next week's game is way more important than this game. But if you're a competitor, to hell with all of that. You just want to win. I don't give a shit if you have to have this game or not. I want to win every game, but add to the fact that it's a division game, then add that it's the damn Philadelphia Eagles, and I want the shit even more. So to hell with whether you need it or not. I want the shit. I want it. So, yeah, I think people are trying to condition themselves to being okay if they don't win. No, not okay. I want to win. Everything we want is in front of us, win or lose, but that's not the point. The point is, if you really want to be a contender in this division, you got to start beating the likes of the Eagles and the Cowboys. Because trust me, the Cowboys have shown in this little stretch here that when they get healthy, they're going to be right back to being a team to be reckoned with in this division. And we couldn't even beat them while they were down. Like, if you want to be considered one of them teams in this division, you got to start beating those teams. We had a chance to kick them while they were down, and we couldn't even do that properly. So here's an opportunity to beat a team that we're going to be competing with for the next decade. And if you want respect, you got to go take it. They're not giving it to us. We got to take it. So you hear somebody who tells you that you don't need this game, they're not a competitor. They're not a competitor. Swaggy P, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Who writes, Terry was the first Washington wide receiver to have 11 touchdowns since 1988. And he should have had 13. And I was watching Hard Knocks yesterday, and Jamar Chase is chasing after the Triple Crown. And I was like, man, I would love to take those touchdowns from him. And if Sunday would have gone the way that it was supposed to, we would have been right there knocking on the damn door. Nobody's going to catch Jamar Chase. He's at 15 touchdowns right now. Terry's the next closest at 11. Had Terry went off for 4, he would have been right there. And I would have been like, yo, we finna come catch your ass, Jamar. But I don't think we're going to catch him now. But it's amazing that Terry had never had more than 7 in any given season in his career. He finally gets a real quarterback, and voila. It's like magic. He'll end up with every bit of 14 this year. 15 maybe. Diallo Watts, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. Diallo writes, what up, Lou? What's up, Diallo? We reckon the Eagles this Sunday. I have a real good feeling. Them Bamas are too cocky and need to be knocked off their perch, and it's up to us to put our Timbs on and kick them. I already said they got a streak that needs breaking. Somebody got to do it. They're getting real cocky and need to be knocked down a peg. Somebody got to do it. Might as well be us. Somebody got to do it. I thought the Ravens could do it. I knew the Steelers weren't going to do it. I gave the Panthers a chance to do it. You want something done right? You got to do it yourself. A wise woman once told me that. You want something done right, you got to do it yourself. All right. We'll take it from here. Don't worry about it. Kevin Petley, thank you for the stand up. You are the newest member of the MOBB mob. You know what to do. Show Kevin some love. Welcome him with open arms. Welcome to the squad, Kevin Petley. LT, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Who writes, how bad you got to lose to see Philly just different? Honestly, I don't think you're capable of beating us bad enough to make me feel any different about your team. I think I've watched every game you've played this season. I think I got a good handle on who you are as a football team. You're a really good team. You're built you're built to last. You're built to win, but you're not special. You're just good everywhere. Okay? There aren't many weaknesses on your roster. You're good everywhere. You're not great, though, anywhere other than your offensive line and Saquon Barkley. I don't think you're great anywhere other than the offensive line and Saquon Barkley. So I like my chances. I like my chances. The Phillies Ace 34. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. What's going on, man? It's been a little while. Good to hear from you. My guy, Louie, you're the man. And respectfully, I have to flex. JD5 is one of them buns. Okay. You'll find out. Having said that, it's family business. All love, my friend. It's always love. The Phillies Ace 34, man. It's always love. And I'm glad to hear from you. And don't be a stranger, man. Don't be a stranger. GT7. Thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, had to jump, but back. So not sure if someone already mentioned it, but if you are limited with a concussion on Wednesday, chances to play are high. I don't think you can be in the protocol and on the field. I think you can be. I think so. I don't want to speak out of turn and out of pocket on the concussion protocol because there are stages to it, and I think in order to get back onto the practice field in any capacity, you got to be in the final stages of the protocol. I think, like, when you're in the first stages, you can't even be outside. So for him to be outside doing individuals on Wednesday, yes, that is a good sign, but it doesn't mean that he doesn't have some sort of relapse or symptoms don't intensify, Thursday or Friday, and he doesn't play, right? Like, we can't assume that, oh, he's fine just because he was out there Wednesday. He could go out there Wednesday and then that triggered something, and then Thursday he's like, yeah, I ain't feeling good, man. I got nausea, I got sensitivity to light, and you don't know what's gonna happen. But yes, the fact that he was out there on Wednesday is very encouraging. That's the word I was looking for. It's a very encouraging sign, but it doesn't necessarily mean he's playing Sunday. But it is encouraging. We didn't think we would be here on Wednesday. None of us did. Not with him. Not with him. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Who writes, to be truthful, I don't hate you guys. We know you really a closet fan, though. We already had this discussion. Of course you don't hate us. You really, truly do love us. I don't know why you don't just admit it. But you have been irritating this year, talking all sorts of snack. This Sunday, when we beat you, scrubs, that'll all change. Okay. Look, you know where to find me. I'm not running. I'm not hiding. You always know where I be. So I'll say this. If we beat you, will I be able to find you? Will you be present and accounted for? Because a lot of these bums won't be. They'll go back into hiding. Will you be present and accounted for? That's all I want to know. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for being a member of the MOBB. You already doubled up. Who writes, warning, random. We should all never trust a man with 2 first names. Facts. What about the man with 2 last names? There's nothing wrong with 2 last names. We've already deciphered that that's okay. having 2 first names. We've already deciphered that that's okay. 2 last names. 2 first names is a problem. Can't trust them. 2 last names is perfectly fine. All right. So, and a lot of times when it's 2 last names, it's debatable, right? Like, is Thomas a first name or a last name? Depends on who you ask, right? Like Thomas Johnson, that could be 2 first, that could be 2 last names. Or that's a first and a last name, depending on who you ask, right? So, not really an issue. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on Commanders Nightly News. I'm getting excited, man. This is going to be a hell of a stretch that we're about to embark upon, starting with Philadelphia. Felt like we just needed to get through New Orleans and Tennessee, and we needed to take care of business, and we did, right? We were going through a little bit of a funk, and we needed to snap that little, streak that we were on, get back on track, and we got through those games, and we got to where we needed to be. Now this is where the real fun begins, because now you're playing for the playoffs, and I don't like the phrase measuring stick game. Never cared for it. But this is an opportunity for us to prove we belong. We think we're one of the 7 best teams in the NFC. We'll prove it. Beat the team right now that many consider to be the best in the conference. You got them at your place. You're relatively healthy. Yeah, we missing some guys. No excuses. We ain't looking for none. We ain't never needed none. We got everything we need. They're the better team. Ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about that. They're the better team. They got more talent. They got more experience. They're battle tested. They got everything. And the fact that we are where we are at this moment speaks volumes as to the coaching staff, speaks volumes as to the togetherness and the brotherhood of this locker room. But more importantly, it speaks to Jaden Daniels being one of them ones. And I can't think of a better situation for him to go out and prove it. Right here, right now. So I'm looking forward to it. King of the Bluegrass, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. King of the Bluegrass writes, us fans can be critical, but we should not stop enjoying what is happening right now because Commanders football is fun again. Exactly. Don't let nobody ruin your excitement, your joy. Don't let nobody spoil your joy. All right. I don't give a damn what, like, Eagles fans love to try to demean our 9-5 by bringing up the fact that we haven't beaten anybody good. I don't give a shit. You think I care about who we beat? We don't control who we play. We can only control who we beat. We didn't make the schedule. We just play it. Right? I don't give a shit. If we beat all losing record teams, could care less. That's for everybody else to talk about and, that's for them to belabor the point about, oh, you haven't beat XYZ. That's fine. I just remember this time last year, I was worried more so about strength of schedule and whether or not I could get the number 2 pick in the draft by losing the rest of the games. I just remember that. And I don't ever want to go back there again. Been there enough times, done that, got the t-shirt and the hat to match. I'm good. This is way more fun. This shit we doing, talking about a 9-5 Commanders team taking on a 12-2 Eagles team. This is way more fun. Way more fun. I'm enjoying this. And you should too. You should too. Anyway, I digress. Duncan Wright, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate you. Duncan Wright writes, you guys want respect? Come get it Sunday. Facts. That's what it's all about. You want respect? There's your opportunity. Go seize it. Go seize it. I couldn't agree with you more. Here's your opportunity. Anyway, y'all go ahead, enjoy the rest of your evening, and we will reconvene tomorrow, have a look at the injury report for both teams again. We'll go behind enemy lines, look at some of the numbers for the two teams, talk about what the Commanders are going to have to do to not only be competitive, but win this game against Philadelphia. And we will start the process of giving away two tickets to the game. So make sure you tune in tomorrow. If you're a member of the mob, if you're interested in 2 tickets to the game, tomorrow is the episode that you need to be a part of. So until then, I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. I look forward to chopping it up with you tomorrow. Until then, y'all know what it is. God bless. Good night.